An unstoppable aeroballistic missile, supersonic and with no analogs.
Countries with a high level of scientific potential and advanced technologies are actively developing so-called hypersonic weapons. Dear friends, Russia has such weapons.
For years, it was praised on all Russian TV channels. The Kinzhal missile was one of the examples of the so-called super weapons that Putin unveiled in 2018. And up until 2023, Russians boasted about the missile's invulnerability. That was until the Patriot system went into operation.
I congratulate the Ukrainian people on this historic event. Yes, we shot down the unparalleled Kinzhal.
It's nice to remember that time, but credit must be given where it's due. The Russians didn't sit idly by, they improved the missile.
Recently, the Russians have undertaken modernization efforts for their missile programs, both the Iskander missile systems and the Kinzhal missile systems. It's actually essentially the same missile, just launched from different platforms. And this allowed them to perform complex maneuvers at the final stage of flight. Plus, they use decoys to mislead defenses. As a result, it has become even harder and more challenging to destroy, and the probability of successfully destroying it has dropped significantly.
Right now, it's quite difficult to shoot down a Kinzhal missile with air defense systems. That's a fact we have to accept, but Ukrainians don't give up so easily.
For every enemy action, there is a counteraction.
Kinzhals have started falling again, almost by the dozens, and that's thanks to Ukrainian specialists, not Western technology. Arsenal is ready to tell you what the best Ukrainian minds have come up with. Here's a little spoiler. The Kremlin's biggest fear has come true. Bandera is destroying Russian developments. Getting interested? Then give this video a like and make yourself comfortable. Let's get started. The Russian Kinzhal can be launched from modified MiG-31K interceptors and carry a warhead weighing 450 kilograms. The Russians claim that their missile is hypersonic. That's not true, but we won't go into details. What is true is that the Kinzhal is indeed fast. Because of this, there were certain difficulties in shooting them down. Even for the Patriot, it's not an easy target. But since 2023, a lot has changed. Now, at the end of their trajectory, the missiles change course and either maneuver or dive at a steep angle, thus confusing the American Patriot system. In recent months, this has been a huge problem, but now a solution has been found.
For every action by the enemy, there is a counteraction. And so one of the options for countering, let's say, ballistic and even aeroballistic missiles is to prevent them from being able to adjust their trajectory by satellite signals during the terminal phase as they approach the target. There are various mechanisms for this. Starting with jammers directly, these have to be powerful systems that can, for example, jam signals in a dome over several kilometers, and ending, for instance, with certain beam-based methods. So from the perspective of signal propagation, I get an overlap that blocks the ability to communicate with the satellite and receive precise timing signals.
This is handled by electronic warfare systems. In this particular case, we're talking about the electronic warfare system Lima. A Ukrainian special combat group called Night Watch claims that in just 2 weeks they shot down 19 Russian Kinzhal missiles. There are no Russian analogs for suppression. A song is used. Our father is Bandera. They immediately provided evidence of the Kinzhal's inaccuracy thanks to the suppression. As an example of such work, satellite images are provided from the area around the airfield in Starokostiantiniv showing numerous craters from missed Russian missiles.
As the Kinzhal approaches a Ukrainian city or power plant, instead of the usual signals, it hears a battle hymn. The confused missile veers off course and may fall hundreds of meters away from the target.
How does this work? The Ukrainian Lima system replaces data from Russian satellites using a song for jamming. The song drowns out the satellite signals and the system transmits false coordinates to the missiles, telling them they are over Lima, Peru. Thus, by confusing the Kinzhal, the missile tries to turn back toward Ukraine, but due to its tremendous speed, it loses stability.
If you can block even one or two signals, or even all of them, including the signal received by, say, a ballistic missile's receiver, then it will still carry out its task. Yes, it will eventually hit the planet, but it might not hit the target. In most cases, of course, it doesn't hit the target because it can't correct its course in the final stage. especially since upon entering the atmosphere, its speed is already reduced. The atmosphere itself slows down a ballistic missile to speeds of 3 to 4 Mach. At that point, it's already possible to knock it off course.
It is also known that this electronic warfare system is actively used to suppress Kabis. It's even easier for the Ukrainian development to deal with them. But in order to jam the navigation of the Kinzhal, Lima had to be improved.
First, it was necessary to increase Lima's capabilities in terms of range, more precisely its reach in altitude, because the Kinzhal moves in the upper layers of the atmosphere. Also, taking the description into account, it had to be able to affect the radar guidance system, that is, directly target the missile attacking the objective. If both of these navigation channels are jammed, then the Kinzhal is left only with its inertial system, and its accuracy depends on the distance the missile travels, because the error accumulates over that distance. And it is quite possible that the power of Ukrainian electronic warfare systems is sufficient to first disable the satellite navigation of the X-47M2 Kinzhal, and then to blind its radar system. And as a result, it really is possible to cause a miss. But
what about the missile's protection against jamming? As Western journalists report, Ukrainian forces began using this tactic when they noticed that the occupiers were installing an antenna with controlled reception in the Kinzhals, an outdated technology for countering jamming and signal distortion. In other words, to put it simply, the Ukrainians won with technology, and the song Our Father Bandera added humiliation to this defeat. At the same time, the publication explicitly states that it could have been any signal, even just white noise, it doesn't matter. The missile would still get confused. Using the song Our Father Bandera as interference is purely a patriotic gesture. And of course, a bit of schadenfreude. What do you think of this way of countering the Kinzhals? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and be sure to subscribe to our Arsenal channel so you don't miss anything interesting.